When I first arrived in San Jose, I didn't really see very many differences between the US and Costa Rica. In Global Experience, we talked about the roller coaster of culture shock and how we would all experience it, but the only things I noticed at first were the drinking age, the landscape, and the graffiti. Lots and lots of graffiti. While those things are notable, they weren't very helpful for finding cultural differences and didn't make me feel particularly shocked. It wasn't until sitting through a few culture, society, and development classes that I started to see what everyone was talking about. In that class, we pinpointed cultural differences through readings and our experiences in Costa Rica, which made me understand the idea of culture shock and Costa Rica a lot more. One of the first things that we talked about in culture, society, and development was the difference between high and low context cultures. The US is a low context culture, and Costa Rica is a high context culture. While people in the US are time-oriented, direct, and adventurous, people in Costa Rica do everything last minute, are always late, indirect, and paranoid. A few of my friends and I went to a Rise Against concert here that was supposed to start at 2. We got there at 2:30 and ended up waiting in line for 4 hours. The wait didn't seem all that long and we had a lot of fun, but if a concert's not going to start until 6:30, I don't know why they would say it's starting at 2. The upside of the chromatics down here, though, is doing things last minute and having them be totally fine. I was planning on taking a trip to Panama with some of my friends, but the night before we were supposed to leave, we realized we couldn't go. We ended up planning a trip to Nosara in Guanacaste at 11 p.m. that night and left at 4:30 in the morning. Apparently, high context cultures aren't all that off by not making plans, because that was definitely my favorite trip here, and it was basically on a whim. The polychromic aspect of Costa Rica worked out well for me. I can't say the same for the indirectness. My service learning was to help create a puppet show about healthcare with the children of Granadilla. The first time that Sarah and I took the bus to service learning, we called our supervisor because we weren't exactly sure how to get to the building from where we were in the neighborhood. When we asked her how to get there, she told us that we didn't have service learning that day. I don't know why she presumed that we would know, but she must have simply forgotten to confirm with us beforehand. She wasn't direct in telling us our schedule and just sort of expected us to know what was going on. It's not really her fault, it's just a result of growing up in a high-context culture. That's just one of many examples of the indirectness in this country. You can't take what people say at face value, you have to rely more on facial expressions and physicality rather than what they're actually saying. I lost my house keys, and my host mom said that it was completely fine and that she wasn't too worried, but I could tell how worried she was by the look on her face. We got the locks changed the next day. Speaking of keys and locks, another result of growing up in a high-context culture is the amount of security in all of the houses. First, I just thought that San Jose was an extremely dangerous place, but I later found out that the ridiculous amount of locks and barbed wire everywhere is caused by high uncertainty avoidance, which is an aspect of high-context cultures. If someone on the block gets an extra gate to lock, other people on the block will do the same to avoid being seen as a target. Through the cultural differences here and figuring out how to approach them, I've learned to accept and be okay with situations that I might have thought were very uncomfortable in the past, such as getting looks and comments and whistles while I walk down the street, and the indirectness and passive-aggressiveness of people. I've learned to understand people even when they aren't being direct with me. Through tone of voice and physicality, I'm able to comprehend what people are really saying even if they don't say it. I'm going into social services and people won't always be direct with me, so I will need to be able to understand and read people in order to help them. If I hadn't had the experience here in Costa Rica, I probably wouldn't have the patience to deal with that. The cultural differences have also made me a lot more open-minded to different ways that people communicate and do things. If I didn't have an open mind, there's no way I'd succeed in social services, so this experience has truly helped me for the future. Although there are things that I didn't enjoy about being here, my overall experience has been positive. Besides all of the knowledge that I've gained, I've also made a lot of friends that I wouldn't have necessarily made if we weren't in such a small, tight-knit group. They've kept my mind open, and I hope that I'll keep the relationships that I've made because they've honestly meant a lot to me. I've never been away from home for more than a week before, so my friends on this trip have really been the ones I've relied on over the past few months. Because I've never really left home, I've never really been immersed in any other culture but my own. I love that the US isn't the only thing that I know anymore. I think that it's definitely really important to travel so that you can gain experience and learn about different parts of the world and different cultures instead of simply thinking that your culture is the only one that matters and being all egocentric. Speaking of ego, mine will definitely decrease upon returning to the US when I will no longer get whistled at or called beautiful every day. Oh well, it was kinda starting to creep me out anyways.